Ministers, I'm 27 and my wife is 26. We have a 1-year-old son and we'd like to have another child, but we're currently living in a cramped attic in my parents' house trying to get on the housing ladder, as many young people who are my peers in this country would be as well, living in very similar circumstances. And under Fine Gael's 13 years in office, the average asking price for a house has increased by around €120,000 and the birth rate has plummeted, which I don't think is a coincidence. So why should a young couple watching this, like myself and my wife, believe that your party will be able to address this problem, given that it's only gotten worse for 13 years under your government's tenure?
Firstly, I think it's important for people to know that there are 500 people every week being approved for mortgages and being able to buy their first home. And while I appreciate that doesn't include everybody at the moment, we want to get to a point where every person who wants to apply for a mortgage, to buy a home, to rent a property, that they have the ability to do that. This means making sure we have a greater housing stock, that we invest more in our housing supply and of all types of housing, private housing, affordable housing, of social housing. We have a €40 billion budget to ensure that we can get to that point. We have set ourselves very ambitious, but I believe necessary and realistic targets. And we are making sure that the supports that are already helping those 500 and others get onto the ladder, that they are continued where other parties would get rid of them, so the Help to Buy. We want to increase that, making sure that where house prices rise, and we have to be careful obviously that we're not pushing them up further, but where house prices have risen, that families are able to get that additional support and that foot up to get on the ladder in the first instance. But I mean, we're talking about reducing the cost of childcare here, where childcare is essentially a second mortgage for families. By reducing that and essentially eliminating so much of that, we are giving people the ability to be able to save and hopefully buy their own home. But it is supply. We are absolutely committed to making sure that we build more houses, all types of houses for everybody, so that's your family and anybody like you that you'll be able to get on the housing line.
But is it not the case that previous Fine Gael politicians in previous elections would have made very similar kinds of statements about how we're doing this and we're implementing this policy and that policy, and yet houses are still less affordable than they were back in the day? I remember during the 2016 election debates, Enda Kenny making all of these statements about these are our policies on housing, here's how we're going to get to grips with house prices. House prices are worse now than they were back then. So my question specifically is, why are these pledges that you're making today credible given that past record? Why should people believe that this is actually going to improve this problem, given how long this party has been hammering away on this issue?
It's a fair question. It's the question I was asked on the door last night for somebody, very same question. And without going back on the history, I mean, when Fine Gael came into government, we didn't have the monies, we didn't have the resources, we didn't have the people to build houses. And in fact, we were moving in the opposite direction, where people were in negative equity, where nobody was able to buy because we had massive unemployment. It took a number of years to get us out of that position, where not only we had people back in employment looking to buy houses, looking to move out of the family home, but also that we had the ability to be able to deliver those houses. We had started to make significant progress, and unfortunately with COVID-19 it did put a dent in that progress. Again, that's not to say there wasn't progress made in that time, but not what we would have hoped for. Since then we can see a massive change and a massive shift in all of the policies that have been implemented over the years, starting to come to fruition, starting to bear fruit. That's why we'll exceed our targets this year. We exceeded them last year, the year before, and we intend to exceed them next year, while also setting very ambitious targets. So I appreciate that it's taken time to get to this point. There have been a number of factors in that, but I'm absolutely confident that the measures that are in place, coupled with new measures, will get us to where we need to be. But I appreciate that it's taken time for people who want to buy their own home now.
And Clive, first to congratulate you on the 1-year-old. I hope you got a bit of semblance of sleep back. I remember when I was first married, I lived in my in-laws' square room for a while. It's a tough station, I empathize with you and indeed your wife. But I think when you ask about credibility and our childcare proposals, we have a good track record here. Fine Gael is the party that set up Minister for Children as a senior cabinet position. We are the party that set up the National Childcare Scheme. We are the party that has led a government that has reduced childcare costs by up to 50%, €5,000 a year for families over the last 2 years. We talk about staff. We brought in a proper minimum salary for early childcare workers just in the last 2 years. And we talked about building these new childcare places. Look at the hundreds of new schools that are being built and that are being extended. We have a good track record here. We've done a lot, but we recognise that a lot more needs to be done in childcare. So when people are thinking of having that second child, they're not worried about finding a place or if they can afford it. That is where our credibility is, and that's where this plan will and is deliverable.
Gabby then, Minister, just on the issue of